Welcome to Channel News U. Today's topic: Putin cornered. So what are Putin's options? As we all know, ridicule doesn't kill anybody, because if it did, Putin would be dead by now. Consider what has happened to him recently. Just over a month ago, he was strutting in Moscow, leading a ridiculously lavish ceremony of welcome into the Russian Federation for 4 new regions, illegally annexed from Ukraine, Luhansk and Donetsk in the east, and in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia in the south. Putin proclaimed Kherson as one of the 4 new and eternal capital cities of the Russian Federation. A new capital city certainly, eternal, not so much. Yesterday, Ukraine President Zelensky showed up in Kherson, the capital of one of the 4 regions, now reclaimed by Ukrainian forces that have been carrying on since late summer a remarkable counteroffensive, winning back ever larger swaths of Ukraine, thanks primarily to the heroism of Ukrainian soldiers and the local population. No doubt continuing military and economic support from the West played its role, making all this possible, but without Ukraine's own unswerving and often heroic commitment, nothing would have happened and Russia would have won. Zelensky walked in the devastated streets of Kherson, opened up his arms and gathered the liberated people's gratitude and enthusiasm, promising them, yet again, that the struggle against the Russian invader won't stop until total victory is achieved and peace is restored. That's something Putin would never have done. In fact, you never see him anywhere, walking the streets, waving at people, shaking their hands, kissing children. Not his style. He likes to remain the big czar hidden behind the tall Kremlin walls, far away from the people. Or maybe Putin's main concern is to be safe from the people? Because right now he's in deep trouble at home. Even his main friend and supporter, Alexander Dugin, the man who dreamed up Eurasianism, the deadly ideology driving Putin, has turned against him. Dugin deprecatingly dubbed Putin a false czar for ordering the Russian retreat from Kherson and more generally, the whole failure of the war in Ukraine. Now, in the Russian tradition, calling somebody a false czar is a serious matter. It's a label that stigmatizes the person, and the expectation is, at least historically, that he should pay with his life for his inability to lead the nation to victory. Later, Dugin backtracked, but the damage was done. The false czar was seen as a loser, covered in ridicule. Perhaps Putin should have seen it coming. Dugin's personal attack on Putin probably had emotional roots. He soured up on Putin ever since his daughter, a TV commentator on the far right, faithfully echoing her father's Euro-Asianic views, was murdered near his home this summer in an assassination attempt in which he was the target. After all, she was killed in that part of Moscow, filled with the dachas of the ultra-rich, where street safety is supposed to be guaranteed by Putin's government. But Putin's problems are not with Dugin alone. All the ultra-right in Russia is up in arms against him, notably Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the infamous Wagner Group of mercenaries. The Wagner Group, created in 2014 and essentially acting as the Kremlin's private army, is notorious for leaving a trail of murderous violence, ruthlessly raping and killing civilians, not just in Ukraine but wherever they go, before in Syria and now in Africa, in Sudan, Libya, Mozambique, Mali and the Central African Republic. Interestingly, Prigozhin, a businessman with close links to Putin, spent years denying his links to the Wagner Group. And he only recently admitted, in September 2022, that he was the founder of the paramilitary group. Coming out in the open at this moment no doubt coincides with his desire to influence Putin and push him into a corner in Ukraine, demanding full-out war, as well as with a need to prop up his mercenaries whose morale is flagging in the face of repeated defeats in Ukraine. Good luck with that. So what are Putin's options? The retreat from Kherson cannot be reversed no matter what the extreme right demands. Some 300,000 new military recruits are now lined up to fight in Ukraine, but they can't go overnight, they need training. And that takes time. They won't be ready before the spring. So, once again, winter is coming to help Russia, a season that has helped Russia so many times in the past, famously starting with Napoleon's campaign and more recently with the Germans in World War II. Now, as the cold weather, sleet and mud make troop movements difficult, there will be time for Putin to get the recruits fully trained and ready for battle. Expect a big Russian counteroffensive in the spring. Will the Russian extremists wait for spring or will they try a coup against Putin, causing total havoc in the Kremlin? Anti-Putin Russians are betting they won't wait and that Putin's days in the Kremlin are numbered. On November 6, a substantial group of former anti-Putin Russian politicians gathered in Jablon near Warsaw in a conference to work out a strategy once Putin is unseated. If you think that looks like an incredible, far-out move, the Kiev Post reported on November 9 the surprising results of that conference. On November 4 to 7, a new parallel parliament for Russia was formed at the First Congress of People's Deputies of Russia in Warsaw. The delegates set themselves the ambitious goal of laying the foundations for a free post-Putin Russia. The Kiev Post made the point that all those who attended this event were currently in exile, people not tainted by any form of collaboration with Putin's dictatorship, are not complicit in the Kremlin's crimes, and have rejected Russia's war against Ukraine since it began in 2014. It goes to show that contrary to the general impression in the West, Alexei Navalny, whom Putin put away in his updated form of Gulag, is not his only opponent. But the biggest blow came from China. From President Xi Jinping, who takes the longer-term view on his rivalry with America, for him, it's a long-term challenge and one that cannot be won if Putin continues to mess things up in Ukraine. At the ongoing G20 meeting in Bali, Indonesia, leaders are expected to issue a statement in which most members will strongly condemn Russia's war against Ukraine, said a senior U.S. administration official in a briefing to reporters this morning. Xi Jinping went so far as to say on the eve of the G20 meeting that he had not been told the truth when they met in Beijing before the Russian attack on Ukraine and that Putin must stop fiddling with his atomic arsenal. Xi had a friendly meeting with Biden, confirming his newfound position, moving away from Putin. The White House said that Xi and Biden agreed against any use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine, as the U.S. seeks to encourage distance between Beijing and Moscow. Today, Xi in his remarks to the G20 offered what appeared to be criticism of Russia, which has attacked Ukraine's energy infrastructure and had been blocking vital exports of Ukrainian wheat, at least until the recent UN-brokered deal solved the matter, though it was briefly threatened at the end of October when Russia said it would pull out and then, perhaps realizing the negative fallout from such a decision, didn't do it. We must firmly oppose politicization, instrumentalization and weaponization of food and energy problems, she said. We are far away from the heady days back in February 2022 when Russia and China had signed on to what looked like a pact of cooperation engraved in marble. Putin is now well and truly cornered. What he will do next is anyone's guess, but it's not likely to be pretty.